Hi everyone, Lewis Weber here, talking today about TPS 1x1 for 12 students, version 404. This is a template, so there are no data collected so far. I'm going to review all of the spreadsheet worksheets, these tabs, also they're referred to, tabs, like they are for file folders. I'm going to review them, and at the end of this training you should be able to use TPS 1x1 multi-student or 12-student version in your classroom. Okay, so let's get started. Right now I'm on the TOC page, Table of Contents page, or tab, and these are the things that you can do very conveniently. We can go to Setup, which is a way to enter students' names and academic blocks and so forth, and of course we'll go over that. We can print students' home notes. We can print students' data sheets, which would be a data sheet that you would enter ones and zeros on directly on that printed data sheet, and then you would use that to go back and enter your data into your student's data file, and I will demonstrate that. We can also print a classroom data sheet, which is all the students that you've entered. It'll print a data sheet for all of them on one page, and that can be convenient for certain teachers. I prefer the student's data sheet, which lists one student per page, and it provides places to record data for 4 weeks. So it's a very convenient thing to have, and we'll take a look at some of those differences. You can review the graph of daily progress, and there are 3 graphs that we're going to take a look at. You can review key performance indicators, KPIs, and these are some summaries that allow you to, on one page, summarize a student's behavior in a very efficient way. And you can look at graphs of increasing and decreasing goal behaviors per academic block. That is a very important analysis that you can do, which tells you how the student is behaving in various academic blocks. And you will probably find that their increasing and decreasing goal behaviors are more prevalent in a particular academic block. And this will tell you which one that is. It's a very useful graph. This graph here, the level system, this is more of a placeholder for the future. What it does is it summarizes the student's performance for the week. It gives the student credit for acting appropriately, and gives the student credit for not acting inappropriately, and it displays a weekly summary of that. We'll take a look at that in a little bit. And we can print daily notes and percentages. That allows you to print all of the notes that you have put into each student's data system, and it's a very convenient way of printing out times that you've contacted the parents, things that have happened, and so forth. Whatever notes you've typed in, it allows you to print them out in a nice readable format. Okay, and so to go to any of these things, you simply click on that button, and what that does is it sends you to well, over here, the setup and the home note, student data sheet, class data sheet, daily percentages, KPIs, analysis by academic block, level, and notes. These 3 spreadsheets right here, you will need to go to. The DA1 and the AN1 are just used for internal calculation, and the credits lists TPS, Behavior Care, the company that developed it, my phone number and email if you wish to find me. Now you'll note the blue dot right there. Anywhere you see a blue dot takes you back to the table of contents. So it's just a handy hyperlink, to use the lingo, brings you back there. And a lot of these pages you'll see the blue dots. Or you can just click on the tab that says Table of Contents that's on the bottom. Now depending on the resolution of your monitor, all of this may not be visible at any one time. This is not a computer that I bought yesterday, but it's within the last year or two, and so the resolution of this computer might be higher than the one that you're using. And so if your computer is older, you might only see some of these tabs being displayed. And so you can always cursor to the right, using, sorry about that, using this control right here, and this will move your tabs, allow you to select tabs to the right or to the left. And if you click on that button right there, it will bring you back to the leftmost tab, or you can use these to move around. So let's just go ahead and click on Setup, because that's where I want you to take a look at and see what we've got here. So here we have school days already been entered for you, and the week start and stop dates already entered for you, and the month start and stop, and the quarter start and stop. So this is a convenience for teachers. There's no reason that we need to have teachers enter any kind of dates, because we already know what the school dates are. So we've entered them for you. And all of the dates of the school year are entered, and we go to data entry, which is these green tabs right here. You'll see those dates displayed, and any of the analyses that we use for these blue tabs are going to reflect these different dates, particularly the weekly, monthly, and quarterly dates. It's a very convenient way. But for right now, what we want to do is set this up for a student. And so in this case, we're going to say our old friend Will be good. And why don't we use another favorite of mine, Gail wins. And she's an old favorite. And we'll leave just in case as the teacher. Now you'll note that I put in these academic blocks already. If you want to change the academic block, all you need to do is type it, and you can type it here, or if you want to edit it, you can go up to the formula bar, which is this spot right up on top here. Let's say I wanted to put bus/arrival, I would do that. And so these academic blocks are going to be used to fill in academic blocks for your 12 students that you may have. Of course, you might only have a few students, or you might only be doing the TPS one by one for a few students. Whatever the case may be, this program allows you to do TPS tracking for up to 12 students. All right, so after you've done that, and of course, if you have more students, you can put them below. Let's see, Rex Cars is an old favorite of ours, and let's see, something a little more. Let's see, Phyllis Glass is always good, and so forth, and you would just fill those in until you fill up your 12 slots. Okay, pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and click on our blue dot. Brings us back to our table of contents, and you'll note what is missing from this is data entry. The reason for that is it would be that I would put 12 data entry opportunities on my table of contents, and instead, just to keep this from being too cluttered, I've just gone ahead and have them listed only in the tabs below, and you would find your student by their student name. Now don't change these names, because student 5, for example, needs to be listed as student 5 for some of the formulas to work. If you ever have a question as to which one is student 5, all you have to do is to go to the Setup tab, or click on your Setup button, and you say, oh, okay, well, we don't have student 5, but we have a student 4. So student 4 down here is going to be Phyllis, student 3, Rex, and so on. And something that you'll just keep in mind. And of course, after doing that a couple times, you're going to remember which one's which. All right, so when we go back to our table of contents, as I said, there's no tab for or hypertext button to go to your data entry. So let's just go to student 1 and let's take a look at that. Here it is, okay? So let's look at the geography of this screen. And this is, of course, where you're going to enter your information. And I'm going to go over that in a little bit of detail. First, let's see what we have here. The student is Will. Justin's the teacher. And I have my increasing goal and decreasing goal And this is a very important thing to decide. What we want to do, the goal of setting up these goals, or target behaviors, which that would be synonymous to goals, is we want to be able to pick goals that are independent of each other. And so when we have things that are opposites, like acts appropriately, acts inappropriately, those are kind of mirrors of each other, and we want to try to avoid that. It's not that you can't do it, but what makes this very handy is if you can make your goals address two different kinds of behavior. And when I mean kinds, I mean that the purposes of the behavior are different. So what I like to do, and this is by no means a requirement, I like to make my increasing goal something that is going to be maintained by positive reinforcement. Uses functional communication to obtain a desired item or activity. That's something that's going to be positively reinforcing. My decreasing goal, I like to use a negative reinforcement goal, or to be negatively reinforcing. Uses aggression to escape negatives, and what we're going to do is make this a little simpler and say to escape unwanted situations. Okay, so in that case, if it's something a student doesn't want, the student right now is using aggression. That's one of the reasons why we would be having the behavior intervention plan. Not always, but often. The student is using aggression as a problem-solving strategy to stop unwanted things. Now, the student may also be using aggression to obtain wanted things, like hitting another child and stealing their M&Ms. Okay, that doesn't happen nearly as often as using aggression to end something unwanted. So we're going to focus on that larger component of the function or purpose of the aggression. And so we have an increasing goal by positive reinforcement, a decreasing goal that uses negative reinforcement. Okay, let's go to the left here. You can see that the dates have already been entered for Will and for all of the students down here. And those are supplied by the dates that are put up in the setup tab. And then we have this spot where you can type in your notes for the day, and you can say anything that you want. These notes are not going to print on the home note that you would give to parents, but they will be displayed underneath the graph. So underneath all three graphs that are going to be on the daily percentage tab. So just keep that in mind. It will be printed small because we're going to be doing a graph for the whole year. But they will appear there, and there is a limit to how much text can appear on the graph, but you can put a bunch of text here in the notes. So say what you have to say, and it's a good place to record that information. And also, as I had stated, that information here will be printed when we go to the Notes tab. It's printed in a much more readable format, not quite so small, so it's a handy place to see what you put here. Your call logs, different kinds of situations that arose, changes in the home, whatever is important. Because as you know, with several students in your class and all the other responsibilities, it's very difficult to remember everything, and so you need to enter this stuff into some kind of log system, and this is a convenient place to put it. Okay, what we have here are our 10 academic blocks, and for each student, these academic blocks can be changed to whatever you would like for them to be. They start with the information that you put in setup. Okay, so this is what I put in for setup. On my setup tab, I put these 10 academic blocks, and those end up going into my academic blocks for each child, just as a time saver. Because if they are the same, it saves you the trouble of having to enter them for each student. However, if they're not the same for each student, you can change them whatever you want. And so if it's no longer bus and arrival and takes a cab, you could put that in there, and it will change it just for Will's data entry. And of course, Will's data sheets will also change to reflect whatever you have entered up here. Okay. To the right, you'll see, I'm going to move this over a little bit, you can see we have the number of academic blocks that are used. We have the daily totals for each of your academic, the number of times that each of these behaviors were observed per academic block. And I'm going to clarify that statement in just a second. We have a percentage, which is the percentage of academic blocks in which behavior occurred for both increasing and decreasing goals. And we also have something magical called total progress percentage, which allows us a way to summarize a great deal of information with clarity. And it's very interesting to see what happens with that. Okay? Okay, so what I'm going to do, just to speed things up a little bit, I'm going to paste some data that I have for another TPS file. You'll see it when you get it, you'll see it blank like this, but I'm going to paste in some data because that way it'll give us some stuff to talk about. All right, and this is a good illustration for what a teacher or an aide is expected to do for data collection. Okay, TPS 1x1 uses a very special kind of data recording that is referred to as binary recording. Binary recording gives you only two options. You can either say the behavior was observed or the behavior was not observed, and a 0 goes in. Now, both the blue and the red numbers under each academic block are independent. So sometimes the increasing goal behavior will be observed, and you put a 1, such as it did on 823 for language. In this example, Will did demonstrate functional communication to obtain a desired item or activity, and we put a 1 there, but we put a 0 for his aggression to escape unwanted situations. In other words, we didn't observe it. Binary recording is a very efficient way to track progress without requiring you to track too much information and thereby taking your attention away from some of the other responsibilities that require attention. For example, teaching other students. When you record frequencies, you have to be attending to that target student all the time, or at least sufficiently well enough to be able to count each instance of behavior. Binary recording takes a simpler approach. We just want to know, did the behavior occur at all? Not how many times. Now, there are situations where we want to know the frequencies of behaviors, and there are different versions of TPS that are available to calculate or to capture those data, to record those frequencies. But TPS 1x1 is designed to be highly efficient, and by using binary recording, a 1 or a 0, what we're able to say is yes, the behavior occurred, or no, it did not. So in each of these academic blocks, we have the increasing and the decreasing behavior, and your job is to record a 0 or a 1 here, or a 0 or a 1 here, to say, did you see it or did not? If you did not see the target behavior, you put a 0. If you did see the target behavior, you would put a 1. Well, if we were looking at 819, I'm going to go ahead and change that. If during language, Will did use functional communication, I'm going to put a 1 there. And if Will did use aggression, which it already has been entered, I will enter a 1 here under language for 819. Now, of course, you wouldn't be going back to making these changes. You would be doing it going forward. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's cursor down. You can see the dates. Let's say today was January 7th. And so let's make something a little bit more realistic. Instead of takes a cab, let's put it back to arrival and bus. Okay. So during arrival and bus, did Will use functional communication to obtain a desired item or activity? Yes, he did. We put a 1. No, he didn't. We put a 0. Let's say he didn't do it. Okay. And let's say during arrival or bus, did use aggression to escape an unwanted situation, I would put a 1 there. That concludes my data recording requirements for the first academic block. And I'll do the same during reading, and the same during phys ed. Well, let's say that there was no reading today, and there was no phys ed today, for whatever reason is unimportant. I'm going to leave these cells blank. And then let's say he went directly to language, and he did use functional communication, so I'm going to put a 1, and he did not show any aggression, so I'm going to put a 0. See, so I'm just going to leave these blank, and by leaving them blank, it takes them out of the calculations. And so we only have 3 possibilities: a blank, a 0, or a 1. Much, much easier to do than to collect response frequencies. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just to delete these, and let's take a look to the right, and let's go up to the top again. All right, so we're back to 819, and let's see what the blue areas show, because it's a good way to explain the kind of information that's going to be graphed. So as you can see, for each day there were for this day, for 819, there were 7 academic blocks, and for each day it's going to display the total number of academic blocks that are available. All right. If they're blank, they're not counted. So there are 2 blanks on 820. The miscellaneous category is blank, and the centers category or academic block was blank. And so that's why it's 8. All right. Now you'll note also counting up, or the spreadsheet counts up the number of blocks for increasing goal behaviors, which is the left side of each of these columns for academic blocks, the blue numbers. It counts up how many of those academic blocks you recorded a 1. And if we look back, there's 1 of them, okay, and there's 2 of them, and there's the 3 of them. So 3 academic blocks we observed functional communication in that academic block. And 5 of the academic blocks we observed aggression to escape an unwanted situation. Well, that allows us a very handy way to calculate a percentage. So 3/7 is approximately 43%, and 5/7 is approximately 71%. The next day we had 8 academic blocks, and 2 of those academic blocks, 2/8 as a percentage of 25%, or 7/8 is a percentage of 87.5, rounding up to 88. So each day it displays a percentage of the number of academic blocks, which would be this column, in which increasing and decreasing behaviors occurred, and it displays a percentage accordingly. And the spreadsheet is going to graph that. Now, total progress does a similar thing, but with a twist. Okay, the first day is the same because there's only 1 day to summarize. So 3/7 is 43%, 5/7 71%. Okay, but come the second day, these numbers start to change. This is 33, but this was only 25. The reason why is the daily percentage is 2 divided by 8 for increasing goal behavior, and 7 divided by 8 for decreasing goal behavior. But cumulative percentage keeps adding or appending academic blocks. So this 33% is computed by saying 3 plus 2 is 5 divided by 15 academic blocks. And on the next day, 45%, that's computed by saying 10 academic blocks divided by 23 academic blocks. So 10 academic blocks in which increasing goal behavior observed, 3 plus 2 plus 5, divided by the total number of academic blocks that were used, 7 plus 8 plus 7, which is 22. And so on each successive day, the daily totals adds in the number of academic blocks in which the target behavior was observed, divided by the number of academic blocks starting from the very first day, and and adding them up. So, but when you start getting down here, let's say to September 18th, okay, it's going to be this whole column here added up, and the same thing for here. So it'll be that number right there for the increasing goal behavior, whatever that number is, divided by all of that times 100 to get to the percentage, and similarly for the decreasing goal behavior. Well, the result of that, in terms of the graph, as I'm going to show you in just a moment, is extraordinary. All right, so let's go back to the left here, and you can see that on some days there was not a lot of opportunity for any behavior because these areas are left blank. Remember, if you see it, you're going to put a 1 there. If you don't see it, a 0. And if you couldn't record, or for whatever reason the student wasn't there or anything like that, just leave it blank. In this case, he went home sick. I know that because I typed those words in there. And on this day, there was a medication change, so maybe that would affect some of the data that I saw. And so you can see some of the kinds of notes that I put in. Very sleepy, went home sick, new reinforcement program, and so forth. Okay? Well, let's see what these data look like. All right, in order to do that, you must click on the graph icon. The graph icon sends the data to these blue tabs, the graphs. Okay? And the reason why we do that is there are 12 different students, and in order for the students' data to be graphed, we need to send the data to the graphing function, or these reports right here. So click on this if you want to see Will's data graph. So let's just do that. Okay, done. It happens very quickly. Let's take a look at the daily percentage. All right, there is Will's data. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cursor down because I really want to start with this graph. This is the daily percentage graph, and you can see it says it right there, uses functional communication. Now you'll note that there is a tremendous amount of variation on the day-to-day basis. Some days he's at 100% of academic blocks with the increasing goal behavior of using functional communication to obtain desired items or activities. And on some days it's very low, in fact 0%, and all the percentages in between. And so when I ask the question, is Will getting better? Well, it's not entirely clear, and one of the reasons for that is that percentages do not involve a weighting factor, W-E-I-G-H-T, a weighting factor. When we see this 100% right here, we know that it was 100%, and that is the correct calculation. The problem is we don't know if it was one academic block that he acted appropriately and then or used functional communication and then went home sick. You'd get the 100% for that. Or was it that he was there for all 10 academic blocks and used functional communication throughout those 10 academic blocks? We don't know that from this graph, and we can't. And that's always been the problem with percentage. If you get 100 on a test and you have 50 questions in the test, did you have 5 questions, or was it 500 question test? We don't know that. And we have the same problem when we look at the decreasing goal behavior. Now the decreasing goal behavior has similar variation. We start to see maybe a trend here, and there's certainly some kind of little trend going on over here. Now you'll note that it's in red dashes, and the reason why it's red is so you know it's a decreasing goal behavior, of course. But the reason it's dashed is so that when you print it on black and white paper, you can tell the difference between increasing and decreasing goal behaviors more readily. All right, and you'll note that on the x-axis, the notes that were typed in are showing up there. All right. So when we look at this, we say, well, you know, it's kind of hard to say if Will is getting better or not. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say, well, let's take a look at total progress. That was the cumulative graph. Let's go back to the data entry and move it over a little bit. That's the total progress percentage, where we each day, as each day appends data, we then add up all of the behavior observed thus far, which would go down all the way down to this day right here. So it would be all of this divided by, and we'd add that up, divided by all of that. Okay? And each day if we start from the first day, it's going to be using this amount of information for total progress. The next day it's going to be that amount. The next day after that it would be that amount. The next day would be that amount, and so on. So each day we're going to summarize a larger and larger section of the data in this way that I've already explained. Now the effect on the graph of doing that is really extraordinary. Let's take a look at that. All right, let's go back to the graph, which is going to be daily percentage, and let's go up to the top, which is our total progress graph. But before I do that, I'm going to just take another look at this. Here's my increasing goal behavior. Here's my decreasing goal behavior. Lots of day-to-day variation, no real clear patterns. But then when we look at the total progress graph, watch this. Okay. Turns out that Will has made considerable progress because the percentage of behavior of, try one more time, the percentage of academic blocks in which increasing goal behavior occurred continues to go up. All right? And sort of plateaus at around 70%. And the same but opposite effect for the decreasing goal behavior. So when we look at this graph, we can say with great assurance that Will has improved. Now the interesting thing about this kind of graph is that because each successive day adds a little bit more data, right? Each day that it occurs gets appended to the data set, both the numerator and the denominator, as the data becomes available. And so as we move to the end here, this data point right here is based on all of the academic blocks in which this behavior was observed, divided by the total number of academic blocks that were available to produce all of these days' data. So it's an important point because the effect is really extraordinary in that it reduces all of that kind of variation because it introduces a weighting factor in that each additional day adds more academic blocks to your calculation. So on the first day, to return one more time, on the first day you only had 7 blocks used in your calculation. On the next day it was 15, and then it was 22, and then it was 29, and then it was 34, and then it was 35, and then it was 38, and then it was 43, and so forth. So come this day, 823, I'm going to add up all of these numbers and divide it by 43 to make the percentage. And the impact of that is to create a graph which is still very accurate, but it removes the variation that comes from dividing your numerator by your denominator, your academic blocks in which behavior occurred, dividing that by the total number of blocks on a daily basis. That daily division introduces a lot of variation. Now you'll also note that things tended to plateau. And the reason for that is, with each successive day, the denominator is getting larger and larger because I'm constantly appending the number of academic blocks that are used in the calculation. So even if he was getting 10 out of 10 academic blocks, that 10 with increasing goal behavior, that 10 is going to continue to be minimized because it's being divided by hundreds of academic blocks that have been added up to this point. So we have a nifty way of fixing this problem, and that is we make a phase change. And when we make a phase change, it resets the calculation, and I'm going to demonstrate that using the same data set. Okay? So let's go back here. And what happens is when you type the word new goal, I said phase change because we're actually using that word or those two words on some of the more recent TPS versions, but on this version it's new goal. We can change it, the formula to look for phase change, but for right now it's still new goal, and we'll just deal with that. Actually, I'll take that back. I did make a change to phase change, so embarrassing little faux pas in this training, but let's fix it right now. What I'm going to say is type the word phase change, and let's just say that the new change is new meds. Okay. Now, I typed the word phase change. Older versions it was new goal, so I do apologize for that little screw up. But it is phase change that we're looking for. It doesn't matter if it's caps or not, and it doesn't matter what else you say before or after. Excel is looking for the word phase change. Now, when I type the word phase change, and I send my data again to the graph, let's do that, okay? And when I click on the graph icon, it puts me back into this spot each time. That way I know I've successfully sent the data. And let's take a look at the daily percentage. All right, and look what it did. It put a phase change line in there. But look what else happened. The increasing and decreasing goal behaviors, the graph did not break. It continues all over to after this phase change. So what we need to do is use an Excel command to break the graph. And this is just one of the idiosyncrasies of Excel. And many people who are heavy-duty Excel users have asked to make this change, but it hasn't yet happened. And as soon as it does, you'd be confident to know that I will put that into effect, which is to be able to break these line graphs in some other ways. But for now, here's what you have to do, and it's important to do it just this way, okay? You click on the row number, not here and not here, because that only highlights a particular cell. You click on the row number of the change, the date of the change, which is right here, okay, 927, and you can see it puts a blue bar all the way across, all right? And then what you're going to do, you have a couple options. I'm going to move this out of the way here. You can, I'm going to click on that again, all right? And you can click on your insert button up top here, or you can right click on it and it brings up the same menu of insert. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click on this again to get rid of that pop-up box, and I'm just going to insert using this menu button right here because I think it's the easiest way to do it. And I'm just going to click it once, and voila, it inserts a line right there. Now that line does something very important. What it does is it breaks the graph. So when I look at my daily percentage, oh, excuse me, I must again send my information because the graph has to be updated with it. It puts a space in there, and that is really handy. So what happens here is this shows the trend during this time period, and then when I put the word phase change in, it resets the measurement. Okay, this is acting as the first day of the phase. Yes, it is the first day of the phase change. But from a total progress graph, or what I call the cumulative percentage, it is starting fresh. So this is the first day of that next phase, and it will continue to add additional information to that day as it did over here as well. So here's the first day, the second day, the third day, and you saw how I demonstrated how the academic blocks continue to append or be added to the denominator before the division occurs to make the percentage. Well, let's go back to here because I actually have the word phase change a couple of times already entered in, and in this case let's see, let's find it. Okay, and I'm going to change that to be phase change again, and let's say new behavior intervention plan. All right, and I'm going to click on the row, and then I'm going to click on insert, and I think there's one more in here. So let's put phase change, and let's put brother joins class. Let's say he had a brother, a twin in another class. Brother comes into the class, and you can see I misspelled phase, so let's fix that. Phase change. Right. Colon, brother joins class. Right. And let's do the important change here, which is to highlight the row and insert the line. I think that was the last one. Okay, let's send the data to the graph. Click on the graph icon, brings me up to the top, and now look what happens. it introduces these other phase changes, and it resets the measurement. So this becomes day 1 again on my cumulative percentage, or my total progress graph. And so I get to see how my measures progress in these phases, so that way come the end of the year these data are not compromised by the fact that it's been the whole year up to this point, which makes this huge denominator of academic blocks. And that's the issue in a nutshell. There's I hope you understood that point, and certainly if you still have some questions, you could give me a ring or an email, and I'll further clarify that. The nice thing about that, of course, is it also does the same thing to the other graphs. It isolates them, but in this case, each day is separate, so there's no resetting of the measurement. It just simply denotes that there was a phase change, and the same thing goes on here. So these data showing lots of variation, and maybe there's a trend, although here we had an increase again. And these data, which are not showing any really significant trend, possibly one here, produces this kind of graph. So to answer the question, is progress being made? The answer here is this. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to a couple other things. We have key performance indicators, and for Will, this shows us the percentage summary for the week. So for the week ending 8/23, 59% of academic blocks had increasing goal behavior and 53% had decreasing goal behavior. And so it's summarized for each week. This box tells me that there was a phase change entered in my student data file or tab for that week. And so it tells me to go look for it if I'm interested because something important happened. Here, these data are displayed in this graph, which is my percentage on a weekly basis. All right. Now, every week is not displayed here because the font would be too small. But each tick mark is a different week. And then I have a monthly summary showing the same thing, and a monthly summary showing graphically what's going on. Now, as soon as January 31st occurs, the next day's data starts filling up these academic, the increasing and decreasing goal percentages for this next month. Okay, and the same thing for the week. So on 1/11 or 1/12 or 1/13, data are going to be entered here. As soon as the next week starts, the information is going to be entered. These percentages will automatically be entered in the next week. But we just know that it's not a complete week yet, so more data will be forthcoming. And we have our quarterly summaries here. I don't do a graph for this because there's just not enough data to need a graph. But it's a great way for summarizing performance for your quarterly summaries, and it displays it right there. All right, let's move to the right and show academic blocks. Let's see what we have here. You'll note that there is nothing being shown, and the reason why is because these dates, the start and the stop date, are reflecting last year's date. So let's put in for 8/19/2013, and let's just say 12/10/2013, okay? And voila, the data appear. This is one of my favorite graphs because it tells me so much. What this is showing is the percent of academic blocks in which increasing goal and decreasing goal behaviors occurred. Let me try that again. This shows the percent of observations of increasing goal and decreasing goal behavior for each academic block. So, in other words, during arrival, during the academic block of arrival, of the times in which you observed behavior, what was the percentage of those times that increasing goal behaviors were observed and decreasing goal behaviors were observed? Okay, so it only reflects observations during arrival and reading and phys ed and so forth, and so it gives a display. So we can see during centers we have our highest level, 82% increase in goal behaviors were observed. So that is, of all the times that he went to centers, that Will went to centers, 82% of those times increasing goal behavior was observed. Similarly, during centers, for all the times that he went, 44% of the time that Will went to centers, decreasing goal behavior was observed. And we can see that we have some problems here, and it varies. And I would say that on the increasing goal side, language is probably not his strongest point, which is why we have a functional communication goal. But on the decreasing side, we do have some variation also, but choice and miscellaneous are two of the higher percentages. So when someone asks me, like, well, where are we going to start working with Will, I'd say, well, let's take a look at this graph, because it tells me we should take a look at choice, because choice has the highest percentage of academic blocks in which decreasing goal behavior was observed, followed by miscellaneous. Okay, now we look at this graph, but because it's a percentage, we don't know how many times each of those academic blocks appeared. In fact, it's a very important question to ask. How many times has Will gone to choice, and how many times has Will gone to miscellaneous? Are they the same? Well, let's take a look at the graph below. This is the total count of behaviors per academic block. So this is telling me that 21 times Will engaged in Will engaged in the decreasing goal behavior, which we know is aggression, physical aggression, during choice, but only 5 times during miscellaneous. And the reason for that is miscellaneous was not offered enough times. It was only offered a smaller number of times. We don't really know what that number is from this graph, but we know that given that these percentages are somewhat similar, we say, well, how often is this happening? Well, it hasn't happened that much. It only happened 5 times. So physical aggression to end some unwanted situation hasn't happened that much in miscellaneous, even though it represented a high percentage, 56% of the time. It only happened for 5 times, so it's maybe not a big enough problem. Not that it couldn't be if we were to increase miscellaneous, but as it turns out, miscellaneous is not offered that often, whatever miscellaneous is. But choice is 21 times, all right? And reading, there's a bunch of times that there have been issues in reading. Well, what is that percentage? Well, it's 50%. So I would say reading is another place to take a look at, because the percentage is relatively high, and he has it often. He goes to reading often because it represents 31 times that he has had the decreasing goal behavior of physical aggression. So that gives us a good place to start working. All right? Again, the level system shows a composite for the week. How many times, it's an average of each day's number of academic blocks in which increasing goal behavior occurred, plus the number of academic blocks in which decreasing goal behavior did not occur. All right. So you may use that. You can say we want to be in the goal group. It can be a very useful tool if you want it to be. All right, we're going to go a little bit to the left here. We've got a few tabs remaining, and then we'll be done. Let's go to the student data sheet. The student data sheet shows a week of data opportunities, and what that's going to do is if I put in 7-1, it's going to put the dates going forward. You always want to put a Monday in that spot, and so the Monday, even if there's no school, like let's say we know that on Labor Day this year there was no school, which was 9-2. Okay, there is a spot for you to put information in for 9-2, but just ignore that. Okay, and you won't need to enter anything into the database. But come Tuesday, this gives you a data sheet which has all of the dates for the next 4 weeks put in there. So when you go to print, it's going to look like that, and you have 12 different pages to print if you have 12 students. Otherwise, you're going to use this dialog box, let's say 1 to 3 students, and it'll print just those first 3 students. All right, you'll note that Will's goals are here, and if we move to the right, Gail's goals are there as well. And if we move to the right, so are Rex's goals, and so forth. And this is a place that you will not be entering data. You'll simply be printing out this data sheet and put it on a clipboard or whatever and collect data using your pencil. And then once you have the data, you will then enter it in one of these student tabs. Okay, this is where you enter the data. This student data sheet is used simply to collect the data, and it's really handy, particularly if you can assign this responsibility to different people on different days. You know that you're going to get good data for all of your students for which you're collecting TPS data. Now the CDS, which is a classroom data sheet, that has all of the students and their goals on one sheet for the day. So it's a daily data sheet, but it's your whole class. Now both goals are listed here for convenience, but you're going to list your increasing and your decreasing behaviors this way. Okay, even though the goals are listed kind of in this horizontal format, first increasing goal, then decreasing goal, your data entry is going to be this way. Increasing goal behavior, decreasing goal behavior, increasing goal behavior, decreasing goal behavior, and so forth. You want to use these arrows to align your increasing and decreasing goal recording, which is a 1 or 0, of course, or a blank. And be sure to put in the date up top. Okay? And then the final thing is the home note. The home note is a very convenient thing because it displays, let's make it a little bit larger, it displays on a given day that the, first of all, of course, it's the name, the teacher's name, the goals for increasing and decreasing for that student. And so a check mark means that the academic block was presented today. The increasing goal behavior was observed, meaning you had put a 1 in that spot, and you put a 0 in the decreasing goal behavior because it was not observed. Same thing here. You observed an increasing, you did not observe a decreasing. Did not observe an increasing goal behavior, you put a 0 there, but you did put a 1 over there. And that is how it works. Now here, lunch and math were not available. So those are grayed out. And during social, did not observe increasing goal behavior, but we did observe decreasing goal behavior. And in miscellaneous, we put a 1 and a 1, which makes both of these icons show up. Okay? And what we have here is 36%. And what that does is it is a level percentage kind of calculation, which is Will gets credit for academic blocks in which we observed increasing goal behavior, and academic blocks where we did not observe decreasing goal behavior, and it makes a composite of that. It actually averages the two and divides by 0. Averages the two and divides by 2, and you may or may not want to use that percentage. And if you don't, we can modify this to simply be gone, but it's there, and it gives the parent a number to use to say, was it a good day or not? And it's a very useful number if you want to make it useful. Parent initials, parent comments, initial and return to school. And when you go to print this, you'll note that it's 2 up on a page to save paper. So student 1, student 2, student 3, student 4. Okay? And so again, you want to use your pages dialog box to indicate which pages to print. All right? And finally, let's just make this a little smaller. If you click on this right here, it will copy your home note. And the reason for doing that is when you go to email this, if you are going to email it, okay, I'm going to make a new email message. I address it. I put in whatever my subject is going to be, a data collection for whatever date. And when I click in the body of the email, I'm going to click on my paste icon, and I'm going to click on picture. Paste picture. So it looks just like that. And you can email your home note to your parent, your student's parent, and say whatever you want to say about it. But this way, they get a nice picture of what's going on, and it's very handy. Okay. All right. Well, let's find that again. All right. If you want to get these dancing dots to erase, just put escape and it takes them away. Make it a little bit bigger. This is where you select the date. Let's not forget about that important point. That's where you select the day for your home note, and we'll update all of your students' home notes. We don't have any information for Rex, but if we did, it would, of course, show up, and you can see how it changes for each day. Remember a couple of things. One is when you go to close this spreadsheet, when you're done, you want to always hit save, press save, so that it will save your data. Most of the time, Excel is going to ask you that, say yes. And when you first start it up, it will ask you if you want to enable macros. Say yes, because a lot of the things that this does are based on macros, which are behind the scenes command sequences. And so, like this, clicking on this starts a macro which says select this area. And so you want to enable your macros. And one final really important point, which I should have mentioned earlier, but we'll mention right now, is if you put information in one of these academic blocks, you have to put information in the other. Whether it's a 0 or a 1 is totally up to what the student is doing, but you can't do half blocks. You can't leave it like that, or you can't leave it like that, and so on, okay? It doesn't matter which number you put in there, but if you put a number in one of the sides, you have to put a number in the other. Now you can leave both blank, that's important, but if you do enter data in any of the academic blocks, you have to enter something in the other academic block. All right, otherwise you're going to get these partial numbers right here for the number of academic blocks used, and that is going to cause problems with your calculations. And I think that will conclude the training on TPS 1x1 for 12 students, version 404. Thank you for spending the 57 minutes with me. Again, my name is Lewis Weber for Behavior Care. I hope you enjoy using TPS 1x1.